Now, unless you've been living under a rock, then like him, love him, hate him, whatever, you've probably heard about the drink driving incident with Ant of Ant and Dec. Basically, he got into a car drunk, I don't know what level, that's a police thing. It was obviously over the legal amount though, and he was with his mum, and he was involved in an incident. Nobody was greatly hurt, but, that's more luck than judgment, shall we say. Now, he's going to appear at court, I think it's the 4th of April, I think it's in Wimbledon. And it's one of these strange things because everybody thinks they know him. Yeah, he's on TV on a Saturday night. He's a big celebrity. He's been in the public eye for years and years because, as most will know, he was in Biker Grove. Well, both Ant and Dec were. And then they had a music career. And nowadays they just... they host a lot of the major big hitters on television. I've watched Saturday Night Takeaway here and there. I'm not a great follower of television, really. I watch a few things like Charlie Brooker, but I tend to be more of a video game and film man. But I can clearly understand the part they have. But it's one of those things that's really rocked sort of the whole of England. One day in particular, I was sat on a tram and I was trying to listen to my music through my headphones because I tend to like to block the world out when I travel. And there was a couple sat not too far from me, but they were having a blazing argument. And at first I thought, as it was becoming clear, I thought, what are they arguing about? Is it somebody close to them? Is it a personal argument? And they were arguing about Ant's drink driving. Essentially with one of them, the male of the couple, claiming he was a drunken scumbag who deserved to go die. And the girl saying, you can understand how people get into these situations and you've got to feel sympathy for him. The problem is, you do wonder, it's this thing that somebody's on your TV, in your front room all the time. To some people, they do almost become like a member of the family. So people do feel like greatly hurt when they do something wrong, or want to charge to their defence in the way you might charge to the defence of your father or mother, even though they're really nothing to do with you. I just thought it was an interesting point to note. They had the thing with the show Saturday Night Takeaway being cancelled the 1 week, and then we've had Dec just do it on his own. Now, I watched that, and I have to admit, I watched it on purpose because I just wanted to see if Dec could cope with that Ant. And not just could he cope, I wanted to see how the audience would respond to him. Now, there's no denying that as he got on stage, he was nervous, and you could visibly see tension in his body language. His speech seemed to have a certain quickness to it. But I think the audience treated him well. They really got into it. And I think you could see on his face that he was actually deeply touched by this. I guess he was worried, am I going to make it on my own? How are people going to respond to me? And I'd like to say, he probably felt an outpouring of support and, appreciation from people. And, he did a good job. The script for the show seemed to be good. I think they did a good point of getting Stephen Merchant on, doing all the terms and conditions. And he did play very well with Dec. A lot of the regular sort of height jokes, which, made even more sense coming from him. There was a slight change to the show, I think. Things, with the Davina McCall stuff and that, there was more emotional, tugging stuff. I was a bit surprised that when it came to it, they did show that night thing with both Ant and Dec in. But I suppose, when you've built up a story and you've shown people bits of it, to never finish it off, And I know before it all happened, there were a lot of talks about how you handle one of a duo's absence. Do you come out and say what's happened? Do you ignore it? Do you make light of it? And I think probably the worst thing that could have happened was to make light of it, because clearly, drink driving's a serious situation. There's families that are involved that wouldn't take kindly to it. And not only that, plenty of us know a relative or a friend who's been injured or hurt in some way or other through drink driving. So, it's a line to best stay clear of. But I think they touched on it decently, with him saying that you'd have to do twice as much work. All in all, I've got to say, a lot of time for Dec. It must be hard. He's worked his whole life with his friend, and then you've got to decide, do you go on without him? And I know there's people who are saying, oh, well, if he goes on without him, he's betraying him and letting him down. But when Ant got in the car drunk and got himself arrested, you could argue he let Dec down. The two are so connected that whatever one of them did, it was going to rub off negatively on the other. Dec, by carrying it on his own, well, if he'd not carried it on, they could have got two different people altogether. Or they could have even just got Stephen Mulhern to do it. So I don't think he really had anything to lose for himself or for Ant. I guess everyone's just going to have to sit back now and see what happens. I guess a lot of it depends upon if Ant gets jail time, how long he takes off in rehab to sort himself out, and then how keen people are to rehire him. I suppose there's an argument to be made that they could just hire Dec on his own and save money. But then, again, that puts Dec in a hard position, with a wife and child on the way. If he's offered a role and he's told, it's just you, mate, does he take it or not? Personally, I think he's got to think for and of himself and his family.